Today, we will sign HB 1557, the Parents' Rights in Education Bill. Parents have a fundamental role in the education, health care, and well-being of their children. We will not move from that. I don't care what corporate media outlets say. I don't care what Hollywood says. I don't care what big corporations say. Here I stand. I'm not backing down. We will make sure that parents can send their kids to school to get an education, not an indoctrination.
Let's just be clear. The fringe is now the norm for the Republican Party, with Ron DeSantis leading the charge by signing the bigoted Don't Say Gay bill into law yesterday. Joining me now, Brandon Wolf, press secretary of Equality Florida and a Pulse nightclub shooting survivor, and Robert Jones, the CEO of the Public Religion Research Institute and the author of White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in American Christianity. Brandon, I want to go to you first. The law that was signed, the Don't Say Gay law that was signed, it doesn't even track with what Floridians think about LGBTQ issues. Non-discrimination laws, Americans and Floridians have equal support for them. Religious-based refusals opposed by 66% of Americans and 66% of Floridians. Same-sex marriage supported by 2/3 of Americans, supported by 2/3 of Floridians. So there isn't an actual sort of constituency that's demanding this. So in your view, what's the point?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. It's also very great to be gay on this show. And I'm going to say that over and over again. We can say gay here. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's the reason you saw the governor sign that bill in the most cowardly fashion possible. Just so people know who are listening, he hid this from his agenda until the very last minute. We didn't get confirmation until probably 45 minutes before he signed the bill that that's what was happening in that room. He also tucked away this event at a charter school to which the law won't even apply when it goes into effect on July 1st. And he closed the event to the public in order to avoid coming face to face with the ramifications of signing such a hateful, harmful piece of legislation, the ramifications, the likes of which he's seen across the state as students have walked out by the thousands. But to your question, what is the point? The point is cynical and political in nature. This is not the first time that we've seen politicians like Governor Ron DeSantis join forces with the far right, the anti-democratic far right, by the way, to whip up sort of fear and fervor against LGBTQ people to help further his political careers. There has long been this marriage between right-wing forces in this country who view democracy as merely an obstacle and the U.S. government as a vessel for imposing their beliefs on everyone else, and the cynical, power-hungry, self-obsessed politicians like Governor Ron DeSantis who are willing to fuel their hatred at whatever cost in order to climb the ladder. That's what we're watching right now.
Right. And, you know, Robbie, thank you for being here, because, look, I have worked, you know, I was not in media. I was working in politics in 2004. I've seen this movie before. You know, George W. Bush, who was a Methodist. I grew up Methodist. I know what a Methodist is. It's one of the most moderate religions in the world. Like, we were home in time for football games in the Methodist church, right? But he decided to go full sort of phony, you know, sort of far right, even though most people didn't believe that was what his real sort of internals were, because he saw that, you know, the party saw that this was a way to win. And it was all about one group. Ron DeSantis might have stood up there in that sign in front of him, might have said, protect white Christian children. Because this isn't about everybody. It's definitely not about people who look like me. It's not about Brandon. It is about white Christians and getting them all ginned up for this election. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think that's dead on. And I think you're right to telescope us back both in time and kind of widen the lens. So it's a little whiplash if you look back, you know, 2004. What's strikingly different, though, right, is that in 2004, most Americans actually did oppose marriage equality. But right today, it's nearly 7 in 10 Americans and Floridians. So, you know, DeSantis, this big speech about, I don't care what corporations say, whatever, he might want to care what Floridians have to say, right, about these issues, and the data is pretty clear about that. They're broadly supportive of LGBTQ rights, and you're right that one of the challenges is that our two political parties have become very polarized, and the GOP has become very homogeneous. It's 7 in 10 white Christian in that party, and half of those are just one group of white Christians, white evangelical Protestants. And they're the only group, by the way, in the country today. And this is also what's strikingly different than 2004, when many people thought of marriage equality as a kind of religious versus non-religious American issue. Today, it's not that at all. Today, every major religious group, except for white evangelical Protestants, supports marriage equality, right? But it is about ginning up kind of fear. And really, if you step back and you see this against the anti-CRT bills, the emerging picture is that, you know, the Don't Say Gay, Don't Say Racism bills are really part of this coordinated effort. That it's just this message, and they are really cynical. They are cynical. It's a culture war, and they're really about fashioning weapons for the culture war and for political campaigns in the guise of legislation.
You know, and Brandon, they're doing everything from, I mean, the QAnon thing is an open sort of blaring attack, really a sort of sideswipe at the LGBT community, claiming that there's all these pedophiles or all these people grooming people. You know, they've used that kind of language. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene ordering Pete Buttigieg and his electric car to stay out of the restroom. I'm really not sure why you would take an electric car into a restroom, into the girls' bathroom. I don't even know what she means. It's so dumb. You know, you have people like Madison Cawthorn claiming he's been invited to orgies. The final thing, the one thing that's finally gotten Kevin McCarthy exercised to speak to him. I mean, the things they're saying, Mike Braun saying we should relook at whether the Loving versus Virginia law, so basically interracial marriage, should be on the table. Like, they're hitting all the hot buttons, but it's so cynical that it is specifically to generate excitement among this one group. In Florida, is that going to be a strategy, in your view, that Democrats are prepared to fight back against? Or that anybody can fight back against? I know that you're not a partisan.
Yeah, you know, I sure hope so. And I hope that, you know, some of the lessons we've taken away from this fight against the Don't Say Gay bill is that we've got to tackle these things head on. We've got to call them what they are. We've got to name them in the context as you're doing. We've got to, you know, hearken back to where these things came from. There's a reason that, keep in mind, you know, it's not just the QAnon supporters. It's not just the furthest right wing of you know, members of Congress who've said these horrible things. The governor's office said that anyone who opposes the Don't Say Gay bill is complicit in pedophilia. That is the office of the governor of the third largest state in the union, accusing Floridians, a majority of whom don't support this bill, of being pedophiles. And the reason that stings so much to our community is because they're the same dangerous tropes that have been used to justify discrimination and violence against us forever. I hope that we're prepared to push back and be firm in our opposition to that kind of hateful and bigoted rhetoric.
And when you say, you know, encouraging violence, it's literal, because QAnon was part of the January 6th insurrection. This is a violent cult. And they're saying these things specifically to get those people exercised and to turn them on people and sick them on people. This is violent stuff. And the governor of Florida, as you said, third largest state in the union, is engaging in it. It's wild. Brandon Wolf, Robert Jones, thank you both very much.